So happy to see you all here tonight. I think it's going to be a great session. I am honored to be the lead transplant ambassador for University Health Network. But tonight you are going to hear from our fearless leader, Sue, as well as myself and my colleagues who are either organ donors or organ recipients, which is super exciting. So welcome to everyone. We're just going to be taping this session for University Health Network patients and staff. So we're asking that everyone, until our question and answer period, please keep their camera off or we won't be able to use the video for educational purposes. So please do keep your camera off and we'll be happy to see your beautiful faces when we do our question and answers, which will be at the end of the session. So before we formally begin, I would like to read the land acknowledgement for this evening. So I'm coming to you tonight from Richmond Hill, which is one of the 9 municipalities in York Region. So I will read you our Richmond Hill land acknowledgement and we will go from there. So we're gathering on the lands, or at least I am tonight, virtually, from the home that was home to the First Nations peoples from the Immoral. We acknowledge that we are now called Richmond Hill, and we are on the treaty lands and the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the Mississauga and Chippewa nations of the Williams Treaty. We also recognize that we are part of the traditional territories of the Haudenosaunee and of the Huron-Wendat. We would also like to acknowledge all the First Nation, Inuit, and Métis peoples from across North America, also known as Turtle Island, who now reside in the city of Richmond Hill, in Ontario, and throughout York Region, of course, as well. So I think it's really important that we acknowledge and show respect to the lands that we're on tonight that allowed us to be here together. So once again, welcome to our session tonight and welcome to Living Donation Week, which is always one of my favorite weeks of the year. So maybe if we can just put up our agenda, Sue. Amazing. Thank you very much. So we've gone through kind of our housekeeping. Certainly, if you have a question before the question and answer periods that is urgent, just feel free to put it in our chat off to the side. So we're going to be giving a TAP overview tonight with a presentation. Then we're going to introduce our panel of my colleagues. After that, we're going to hear some pretty amazing stories from donors and recipients. And then we're going to have usually our most popular portion of the session, which is our question and answer. So certainly you can put some questions if you don't think you can remember them in the chat to the side, or if not, you can certainly ask them when the presentation and stories are over. Okay. So this is not only our TAP mantra, but it's also certainly one that I live by. And I have found this to be true in both my organ donation stories, as well as working through other things in my life. So this beautiful quote is one that we kind of tend to live by at TAP. So one day you will tell your story of how you've overcome what you're going through now, and it will be part of someone else's survival guide, which is so true. So it's our pleasure to come to you tonight and to talk about what we do. So the amazing thing about TAP is that we have really walked the talk, which I always find to be so important. So we have been in your situations, or we have had family members and very close friends in your situations before. So we really know what you're experiencing, which is why we're so happy to help. So like I said, we know what you've been through because we've been there before. So transplant ambassadors are kidney donors donors and sometimes some liver donors as well. And they're also recipients living with a successful transplant, either from a living donor or a cadaver donor. So ambassadors connect with patients at all stages of their kidney journey and sometimes liver journey, from early onset kidney disease, kidney failure, to dialysis, to inevitably their miracle transplant. So the top difference that we make, really all across Ontario and certainly across Canada, is privacy and confidentiality protocols. So we've all had vulnerable sector screenings completed, criminal reference checks, and top emails are absolutely confidential and do adhere to all privacy and advocacy protocols. We are integrated into renal hospitals for patient referrals. So most of you would have heard of us through some capacity of a relationship with University Health Network tonight, but we are also in multiple other hospitals across the province as well as in Halifax. We measure our impact and log patient identified barriers. So this is really important for us to be able to take back to our funders, to us to be able to take back to the hospitals and the physicians and whatnot that we're working with. So when we're in discussion with some of our referrals and they may be experiencing barriers in the hospitals, barriers to reaching out to people in general, barriers to other programming that they may need and other referral sources, we're able to identify those and carry them forward and oftentimes luckily and thankfully put a stop to those barriers. We work to make the right match for each patient and donor, which is extremely important. So, if you are a father looking to donate to a child, if you are a child looking to donate to a parent, if you are a neighbor looking to donate to a neighbor, a coworker looking to donate to a coworker, we are usually able to find that match, which is pretty amazing, and unlike really any other programs out there. You are able to email our ambassadors through our website directly, which is really fantastic. So you're able to go on there, which we're going to show you in a few moments, and find an ambassador in a category that you're looking for, some of which I mentioned earlier, and then able to directly email them, which is great. We are able to meet with you virtually and in person. I have done both as an ambassador, and they have both been very successful. So whatever the comfort level is, whatever's more convenient for you, we are able to do. And we are an independent volunteer patient-led program. So all the stories that you will hear tonight of us in our little green bus, we are volunteers and happy to do so. I think I can speak on behalf of all of us tonight by saying that because we've been touched in such a remarkable way, either by receiving a transplant or allowing for someone else to have a life-saving transplant, we have felt compelled to share our stories and to help others because of what we've been through and the amazing successful stories that we've experienced. So just some of our top stats that we like to share because they're pretty outstanding. So we have over 200 transplant ambassadors. We're working with 27 renal hospitals in Ontario, plus Halifax. Our ambassadors speak 26 different languages. We have had over 10,000 conversations logged. No patient names are tracked, but just the conversations and the numbers of them. 2,000 patients and donors are on our webinar mailing list, which is really incredible. 25 webinars since 2023 have been conducted with over 2,000 participants, which is a pretty remarkable number. 200 plus patients have a profile on our patientseekingdonor.ca, which we're going to delve into a little bit more in a minute. We have 50 plus new ambassadors onboarded since 2024, 2025, which I think is really outstanding. And I think it also speaks to how incredible the experience is that we want to then ensure that other people have those incredible experiences. And we are in our 9th year of operation. So next year will be a decade of operating, which is pretty cool. So you can certainly visit us. Hopefully, some of you have checked out our website already, but if not, you can certainly visit us at www.transplantambassadors.ca. And so when I had first heard about this program, I went right to the site, read everything that I needed to know that I really wanted to be involved. So it's a very easily to navigate website, very user friendly, and you'll gain really all the information that you need about us on there. So speaking a little bit more into the diversity of TAP, so across the province, we match on as many variables as possible, as I mentioned earlier. So if you're on dialysis and you're looking to speak to an ambassador that was on dialysis, or if you're looking to explore donating and you're a young career woman, we have all these little tabs that Sue's going to walk you through in a moment, and you're able to really get your match based on the different variables, including gender, age, the hospital that you're registered with, kidney experience, background, and language. So below are listed the 25 languages that we are currently able to communicate in with patients. And Sue, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, my apologies. I did it again. I left my mic.
Oh,
I left my mic off. I'll mute myself while I was showing but that's okay. I see two more people waiting to get in, so I will let them in, and
perfect.
then I'll share the last couple of slides here. Just indulge me for 1 second. Okay. Okay, so this was the slide that we left at. Everyone can see it. Meg, can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
So this is what we were talking about in terms of finding the right match. So you can contact us and we will find the match for you, or you can do your own self-serve, which would be to go onto our Transplant Ambassador directory, which is in the top right-hand corner of our website. You can click on any of these tiles or a combination of these tiles. So if you are a kidney transplant, a potential kidney transplant recipient, and you're hoping to talk to someone who's had a kidney transplant, and maybe you are 72 and you'd like to talk to someone who's over 65, you can do that. Maybe you want to talk to someone who's over 65 and uh, and speaks French. You can click on all of those, and you'll get one or two people that are potentially more that would show up under that category. And again, we're happy to make those connections for you. But this just gives you a sense. Beside many of them, although these top three people that are showing, they don't have a video. If they had a video, there'd be a little arrow showing their video. And so there's definitely a lot of videos though, so you can go on and even hear some of their stories without reaching out to them. But you can send any of them an email, and they'll get back to you. In addition, Megan had mentioned our patient seeking donors portal. So you can go into patient seeking donors and you can create a profile. So if you go to patientseekingdonors.ca, there's at the top of the page, it says create your own profile. And so basically it'll take you through a series of questions, which you would answer, and then that would come to us. We would reach out to you and share a draft of the profile with you, ask you if there's any information missing, and kind of work with you to make it what you want. And then when you're ready, it would go live on our website. You get a URL then that you can send out to your family, friends, and networks and say, just, want to give you an update on my health. I'm now looking for a living donor. I've posted on this site. It makes it real for people. It makes it real for, even if people know that you are that you have kidney disease, they may not know that it's reached this stage. So this is a great way to let a lot of people know, and let a lot of people know that it's become extremely real in your life. That's also you don't have to share any personal information to post on this site. They would be able to send you an email, and you could choose to respond or not, but only if you responded would they then have your contact information. So it's a great way for people to reach out to you. And we have had a number of matches on that website already. So some from people who are hearing about the website and going on to donate to someone who needs a kidney. But we're also finding that patients are using this platform successfully to get their to get their health update out to a large number of people. And again, people from their networks then may come forward to say, I'd like to know, I'd like to hear some more information. And it's good to send them a little bit of an update, every couple of months as well. So we also do provide, we do 5 or 6 webinars a year. We'll add you to our webinar list, and hopefully there'll be some interesting webinars coming up in the future that you might want to hear about. And we do put the recordings of the webinars on our website afterward. And just last thing we want to draw your attention to is our resource hub, which you can see again from the main page and click into. There's lots of resources there for patients and for donors. So have a little look around there. We do try to keep that as updated as we possibly can. So if you're hoping to have a transplant and you're wondering what some of the tests are, there's the criteria and referral form, and another form that showcases what describes what tests you're going to need. In the same way, your living donor, it would show what tests the living donor would need to go through and all of that kind of stuff. So feel free to look at that and hopefully find some interesting and helpful resources. We want to just thank you for joining us tonight and being part of our 9th year. We also have an advocacy initiative ongoing called Transplant First, in which we're advocating for more transplants across Ontario and Canada, and would love to hear from you on that. You can go to www.transplantfirst.ca. And then we're going to go into our TAP panel, which includes everyone on this list except for Richard, who was involved at 4:30, but everyone else is here, I believe, now tonight to share their story. So I'm going to hand it over to Meg. We'll start with our panel. Over to you, Meg.
Thank you, Sue. So I have to say, I have to really watch the clock when I share my story because it's my favorite thing to talk about. So sometimes I've been known to go on and on, but I will try to keep it as short as possible tonight so that we can stay on track. So long story short, I had a very ill mom growing up who initially needed a liver transplant at Toronto General Hospital. And unfortunately, back in those days, there was no such thing, we're talking almost 30 years ago, as a living donor. So we were looking for a cadaver donor, which was really, really hard on our family, knowing that someone had to pass away in order to save my mom. We were granted our miracle and everything went incredibly. And that's when I first had my eyes opened to the incredible staff and program that Toronto General has, and how many miracles are performed in those walls every day. Unfortunately, 10 years later, my mom experienced another health crisis with the donor liver and needed a second liver. And at the time, they were starting to delve into living donation, but because she had had a previous transplant from a cadaver, we were looking for another cadaver. And this time, tragically for another family, but thankfully for ours, with 24 hours left to live, she was granted a liver from a child at Sick Kids. So that was devastating for us to hear, but we did receive our second miracle. And from that moment forward, I just really wanted to be able to pay it forward and to help other families in the same situation as ours. So fast forward a number of years, I had kept myself healthy with the hopes of donating a kidney to my mom. So my mom has polycystic liver and kidney disease. Unfortunately, it affected both livers in her instance. And but then a good friend of ours that also had polycystic kidney disease was in desperate need and only had a little while left to live without a donation. She had 2 friends step forward from work, which was really lovely. But unfortunately, in their last stages of their testing, they were deemed not appropriate. So I had a discussion with my family. They said, why don't you try? I said, okay, but I was really trying to hold out for mom, and I probably won't be a match anyways because I'm not a blood relation to her. So lo and behold, I went through the testing process, which was really easy. It was only a couple of weeks from start to finish. And I said in our earlier session, it was really neat. It was kind of like every test that I passed, I got a little bit more excited and a little bit more invested into the entire situation. And so, thankfully, by the grace of God, I passed all the testing. And even though we were not a blood relation, we were a 9 point perfect match. So I donated my right kidney to my friend, who's also named Meg, on December 8th of 2016. Both of us did incredibly well. We were very blessed to have a really smooth recovery. And so I began keynote speaking on organ donation and transplantation. And through that was invited to a UHN fundraising event where I met a man who had donated part of his liver to a young lady at his church. And so I thought, well, maybe I should try for that. And went through the testing for a liver donation, was able to pass those tests as well, which was really remarkable. I had agreed to do it anonymously, but then through some of my keynote speaking, met a family that had an infant that was just a couple months old at Sick Kids Hospital that was in desperate need of a liver. She had been born with a condition called biliary atresia, and the only way of saving her life was going to be a transplant. So we met. We agreed to have both of our teams at Sick Kids and Toronto General compare scans and tests. And although she was an infant at the time, I was 38. She's Black, I'm white. We somehow were an incredible 9 point match again. So in May of 2019, I donated the smallest portion of my liver, so 30% of my liver, to who is now my goddaughter. We both also had a remarkable recovery. Both times I went back to work in 3 weeks, certainly taking it easy. I wasn't doing any weight training at the time, that's for sure, but was able to drive again, do my walking again, go back to work, certainly for a couple hours every day at first. And we, like I said, we both did incredible that second time around as well. Um, the benefits of being a donor, I would always say, is that, physically, you know that you are healthy from head to toe and you work to remain healthy. You drink your water, you stay away from ibuprofen, which is the only change to my life that has occurred since donating both my organs. Everything else has remained the same, except I don't take ibuprofen and perhaps I drink a little bit more water, which everybody should be doing on a daily basis, anyways. But the benefits emotionally and mentally are really fantastic. And I didn't really understand the depths of how um, the benefits would affect me until I did it. So waking up every single day knowing that your body saved two people's lives is probably it's really an emotion that I can't even bring justice to or put words to, really. Watching them both be able to live their life, to travel, to do things for the first time, like my little goddaughter does. I got to watch her in her first ballet recital this year. Things like that have been really remarkable, and I really can't even explain how that makes me feel or my relationship with them. I'm getting married in 4 weeks, and both of them are actually walking me down the aisle at my wedding. So that's something that's pretty incredible to me as well, that we can have that milestone together. So I think it's really important, though, that as someone that's looking to be a donor, or certainly someone that's looking to be a recipient, that you do really advocate for yourself and along the entire process. And if you think you may not be strong enough or you may not be healthy enough, find someone that can advocate for you. Luckily enough, as I mentioned, I was perfectly healthy going in, so was able to advocate for myself. But as time went on, I was also able to advocate for both of my recipients, as their family members were going through this really hard time and having to look after their loved ones. So I was able to kind of ask the hard questions and get them the help they needed over time. One thing that I wish was I had access to, or had in general during my donations, was something like a transplant ambassadors. So transplant ambassadors was just getting started as I donated my kidney, and then when I donated my liver a couple of years later, I still hadn't heard about them yet. So I wish I had them, because I didn't have anyone to speak to about this. So as incredible as the medical team was at Toronto General, I wanted to be able to ask a donor, did you feel like this after, or did you have this pain in this place, or is this normal? And I didn't know anyone at the time. So I wish I had that. And that's why I'm so invested in this program now, because I can be that person to somebody else, or to another family that's looking for that. So happy to answer any of your questions during our question and answer period, but that's my story.
Thank you so much, Meg. I've put Meg's email in the chat, so if anyone would like to reach out to her, she would certainly love to hear from you. I think that goes equally for if you're a potential donor or if you're a potential recipient. We do find that our recipients may think about reaching out only to other recipients, but really you can learn so much from people like Meg and others who have donated their kidney that can make you a lot more comfortable talking to your potential donors about the risks and benefits of donating a kidney. So feel free to reach out to her, whether you're a donor or recipient. And again, you can ask her more questions at the end. But we're going to go next to Paul.
Hi.
He's our next ambassador. Over to you, Paul.
Thank you, Susan. My name is Paul, and thanks everybody for coming tonight. So I was diagnosed with polycystic kidney in my mid to late 20s. I got the genetic disease from my mother. So I grew up with a parent on dialysis as a teenager, and unfortunately, this was in the mid 80s, and she couldn't get a transplant. So she did pass on after 5 years on dialysis. And when I was diagnosed with the condition, I knew that I wanted to advocate to try to get a living donor. So there's not much I could do with the condition at the time. So I essentially, at that time, saw my mother's nephrologist at Sunnybrook. And his only advice to me was to cut down red meat, drink a lot of water, and just take care of yourself, which is basically what I did. And I think that's why it waited quite a while until the polycystic began to progress. So around the mid 2010s up to 2015, I was showing signs of kidney failure. I had reduced function. And also at the time, I got word out to friends. Family couldn't donate because of the risk of the gene, but I got word out to friends. And by the time my kidneys failed in 2018, I already had three of my friends who had approached to donate. So the correct blood match, my friend was the first to go. Unfortunately, she didn't pass her first medical. So I went on dialysis at Sunnybrook in their CNIB unit at the end of 2018, and I stayed on dialysis for 2.5 years. Through that period, I had 12 people approach that wanted to donate, and we kept testing people in various stages as we went. So the next 5 couldn't donate due to medical reasons. And we're also now in the middle of the pandemic. It's 2020, it's 2021. My only social circle at that time were patients and doctors at the dialysis unit. So it was an interesting time. My last donor, my friend Mary, who I had known since kindergarten, unfortunately through a phone call, when I heard her brother passed away, she asked me how I was doing. I was giving her condolences, and she asked me how I was doing, and I said, I need a kidney. I'm not in good shape. And she said, I'll test. So from that phone call, my friend continued to do her own testing through Toronto General. And in April of 2021, I had a kidney match. And we were shut down again by COVID. There were no transplants going on. And we were able to, due to just some luck, due to cancellation in June of 2021, I managed to get a living donor from a woman I had known for more than 50 years, which was quite incredible. So I'm doing fine. She's doing great. I'm probably in the best shape I've ever been in my life because I'm very active and I'm working out a lot. So I'm dealing with the normal suppressed immune system issues, but there's a great circle at Toronto General to help with everything. I get tested regularly. And I'm really happy to have been assisting the ambassador program for, I think, almost 3 or 4 years now. And I've met some people that have talked to me for advice, and I've seen a couple of people go through transplant, and I'm still in touch with them as they progress on their journey. So it's been a very enriching experience, to say the least. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Paul. Your story is quite inspiring, and we appreciate you sharing with us tonight. And I'm sure there'll be some questions for you when we get to Q&A. So we're going to go next to Emily. Emily, I'm going to spotlight you and look forward to hearing your story.
Thank you, Sue. Hi, everyone. Thank you all for attending. My name is Emily, and I'm 26 years old. I was born with something called a tethered spinal cord that went undetected at birth. And so when I hit a growth spurt at around the age of 11, I began experiencing reoccurring UTIs. And for a long time, no one could understand why. Once the spinal issue was discovered, I surgically corrected it. However, there was a lot of damage done to my kidneys at the time. And so I lived with chronic kidney failure for about 13 years until April 12th, 2024, when I received a preemptive kidney transplant from my mom at Toronto General. Because I was so young at the time of my diagnosis, I don't think I ever truly believed or understood how sick I really was, nor did I think that I would eventually need a kidney transplant. But the year to 2 years before my surgery, they were pretty brutal for me. My symptoms and my labs did not match. I was nauseous every day. I couldn't eat very much, and I had little to no energy, yet my labs didn't really reflect how awful I felt. During this time, my mom also was in the process of doing her tests to see if she was a match. And so when things finally lined up and I was told that I needed a transplant, I was actually very relieved and looked very forward to feeling better. And luckily, there was also a last minute surgical opening and I was squeezed into it. So I really didn't have much time to worry or stress about it. My transplant did take place on April 12th, 2024. And when I woke up from surgery, I felt so amazing that I barely even noticed the incision pain. Like any major surgery, I did face a few complications, and I am still working with my team to stabilize my medications. But overall, my recovery has been nothing but incredible. My mom and I are both doing great. Since the transplant, we've traveled a bunch of times. We both work out 4 to 5 times a week, and the experience has honestly brought us even closer than we already were. One thing I do wish that I'd known earlier is that recovery after transplant isn't linear and two people's journeys don't look the same. I've been very sensitive to the medications and adjusting to them have been tough, but even with the challenges, my quality of life has drastically improved. And I would honestly take the side effects of all of the medications over how awful I was feeling prior to surgery. And I'm forever grateful for this second chance at life.
Thank you so much, Emily. It's wonderful to hear your story and great to hear how well you're doing, even though it's only been a year and a half at not even, but certainly look like you have a lot of energy. And we're so excited that you're here to share your story with others. And I'm going to put your email in the chat so people can reach out to you as well. Okay, so next in our panel is Michael. I saw him join. Mike, are you there? I know I let you in a little bit.
Hi, Sue. I'm here. My challenge is that I cannot get my camera to turn on for some reason.
Okay. You know what?
I'm happy to do my thing, or happy for you to say, you know what, without you on camera, it doesn't work.
Well, no, why don't you? The only thing I would suggest is that you maybe log out and come back in. Sometimes, amazingly, that fixes it. Yeah. I'll just go to someone else and then, but we'll definitely want to hear your story, whether you're on camera, but it might be nice to just test it out one more time.
Okay, cool. We'll do so.
Okay. Thanks so much, Mike. All right. So as Mike's rechecking his camera, we will go to Ralph, who I know is already on camera. So over to you, Ralph.
Am I unmuted?
You are unmuted, yes.
Hi, I'm Ralph. I started my transplant journey back in 1978. My dad offered to donate a kidney to me, so I'm a recipient of a live donor. My dad lived to be 94, and he did not have a problem with his kidney or anything else as a result of his donation. My journey came about because I wound up with something called pyelonephritis, which is an infection of my kidney. The kidney continued to work flawlessly for about 20 years. And then I had an issue with another infection. And the infection caused my kidney to shut down, and it recovered, but not for very long. So I got in line for another transplant. And the transplant that I chose was a pancreas and a kidney transplant. The reason for that, of course, was I was diabetic. And the waiting time for a kidney pancreas transplant was months, not years. So I was on dialysis for about 6 months, I believe. I understand from various people that I've spoken to that they were actually out on the streets looking for people to participate in the program because it was new at the time. So I managed to avoid the long wait that way. And I still have a functioning pancreas that allows me to avoid any of the diabetic complications that one might expect. Kidney, however, failed in, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago now, I guess. And I had my third kidney transplant as a result of the second one failing. I was on dialysis for about 1.5 years that time because there were no live donors and there was no way to shortcut the list. I'm a type A blood, so the waiting time for me wasn't as long as a rare blood type. And one of the things that I've found about the transplant program, particularly at Toronto General, is that they are superb at everything that they do. I did not have any rejections whatsoever. I did not have any issues as a result of the transplant medication. I've done marathons. I play racquetball. I downhill ski. I do all of those things, and I don't have any repercussions as a result of the meds or anything else. Perfectly normal life, other than I'm getting old and a little slower, a little dumber, but that just comes with age. And I'm so glad to have a birthday and continue to have a birthday. Fortunately, when I went through my first transplant, TAP did not exist. TAP didn't exist for my second, and I don't think it existed for my third either. But be that as it may, first transplant, there's an awful lot of questions, great number of questions that you have, i.e., how will I feel when I've had the transplant? And there was a fellow that was introduced to me at St. Mike's by the transplant people that were in place at the time, who had had a transplant a year before I went through. And he was the first diabetic kidney transplant in Canada. At that time, they say, well, you're diabetic, your kidneys have failed. Sorry, that's sort of the end of it for you. And they changed their view a bit. And he came in and he was a very interesting character. And he had lots to say about life and all the things he was doing. And I thought, okay, that's going to be me in a couple of months. And as it happens, it wasn't even a couple of months. I bounced. Boy, did I bounce. So I've been very fortunate as I've gone through this. All of my transplants have been successful. They have been almost instantaneously successful. And I've enjoyed life immensely as a result of the program. And anybody that's thinking about a transplant or is unsure about a transplant, don't. Just do it. And that's my story.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ralph. It's a very, very inspiring story of resilience, and we're glad to see you doing so well. It's amazing. Okay, we have Mike back. I don't know if he has his camera or not, but we're going to go ahead, Mike, because your story is absolutely incredible. Well, and go ahead. We'd love to hear from you.
Okay, so I apologize to everyone that I can't get my camera to work. We had it working earlier 2 hours ago, but I love Microsoft Teams because I always say about it, it is the most brilliant software ever invented because it works differently every time for every person. So this is consistent with that. I'm very happy to be here tonight, and thanks for joining. My story, I was a kidney donor. I am a kidney donor. I donated a kidney to a neighbor and friend of mine in 2018. So that seems like quite a long time ago now. My friend had a kidney disease and had watched his own father when he was a young man, had watched his own father go for 8 years on dialysis, and he was quite committed to not repeating the experience for himself. So he set out to find a living donor, and approached me and my wife to attend an event that he was organizing to sort of provide information on living kidney donation. And I would say at that point, I knew absolutely nothing about kidney disease, about donation, and a rainy Tuesday evening in Toronto came around, and I thought, well, he's organized this event. I mean, I should definitely go as a way to support him, but I didn't in a million years think that I would actually come out of that event as a potential donor. So I went in really with low expectations and not knowing anything, and then I heard two absolutely inspirational speakers, two persons who had each donated a kidney. The first was a mother of some grown children, and she really told of having wanted to do something altruistic when she was young, but sort of getting caught up in life. So she had a busy career. She raised a family, and after she finished raising the family, she came back to that desire of hers to do something good for others, and came across kidney donation and found it incredibly fulfilling, as you've heard from others tonight. The other donor told quite a different story. He had a very rational, practical side to his story. Sort of picks up on what Ralph was indicating, which is, he was really emphasizing how transplanting a healthy kidney in a person with kidney disease was like plug and play in a computer. Like you could literally just plug it in and the results were immediate, to bring that person, when it goes well, to good health. And that really, both of those stories really spoke to me. And I went out of there thinking, that could be me. And that was quite a surprise. And I think the moral to that story is, for those looking for a kidney donor, is that you never know where your kidney donor is going to come from. So I went out of there thinking, gee, why not me? My wife was a little more cautious, and she reminded me that we actually knew a nephrologist, not a nephrologist at UHN, but from a town outside of Toronto. And she said, well, why don't you just talk to our friend before you make any, big decisions here? And I spoke to him, and he had a really interesting point that I hadn't heard before, which was he said, look, you're 56 going on 57. If you if you were likely to have an illness that that your donation would put you at risk for, then that actually would have surfaced by now. So he was basically telling me I was old, and things would have come up before that point if they were a concern. So I then enthusiastically embarked on the process of being worked up to donate a kidney. It took approximately 6 months. I was very lucky because I worked downtown, so not far from UHN. that made my attendance at the numerous appointments much more convenient. And I always admire those who don't live in or work in such a convenient location near a hospital, and the efforts that they make to travel back and forth, which are quite considerable. So what was the workup like? I thought it was really well run. And I took tremendous comfort from the fact that there was a separate team assigned to me, and that team was different than the team assigned to the recipient. And the workup was incredibly thorough. But even so, I think you're working within our healthcare system, which is excellent, but not always convenient. And so there are typical delays and wait times and so on and so forth. They don't roll out the red carpet for you because you're donating. So that's something to keep in mind, but that certainly didn't deter me. I was again very fortunate. The process, the actual surgery went really well. And I spent a couple of weeks at home following the surgery. The weather was beautiful. I remember walking around the neighborhood, just feeling absolutely great. Great physically, great emotionally, got tremendous emotional benefit from donating the kidney to my neighbor. He is the same age as me. He has children the same ages as my children. And so it was a real gift to me to be able to do something that brought back his health and vitality. So I see tremendous benefits. I was lucky. I had a chance to get some good advice from a previous kidney donor who said to me that, you're going to feel a lot healthier and a lot better than you actually are. So, take your return to work slowly. And he suggested to me that my first week back, I would work a third of a day, and the second week back, half a day, and the third week back, a full day. And I was fortunate enough to have the flexibility to do that in my work. And so I thought that was just really excellent advice. Health-wise, I don't know if you've heard it from anyone else before, because I'm joining this session a little late, but the only impact has been cutting out ibuprofen, so no Advil after physical activity. I've had to switch to Tylenol, which I still don't think is as good as Advil, but it's a small price to pay. I didn't find that I had to advocate for myself. I found the Transplant Center did a really good job of moving the process along and I never felt undue pressure. I really felt that they kept emphasizing I could change my mind at any time, and that they were really there for me and not to facilitate something for the recipient, which I think is really important in terms of the integrity of the process. So that I was really comfortable with that. The only thing I really wish I had known earlier was how invested I would become in succeeding in this quest to donate a kidney. I mean, once you make that decision, or maybe it's not like this for everyone, but for me it was this way. Once I made that decision, I was really hell-bent on seeing it through and succeeding. And Meg said earlier today, and I don't know if she said it again tonight, that with every test that you passed, you really felt pretty pumped, and you really got committed to having it go through. And at one point, my recipient needed another procedure, which delayed the transplantation somewhat. And I really had to manage my emotions because I was so keen to go through with it and see it succeed. So one of the pieces of advice I would give people is to try and keep their emotions in check, because it can be really quite a roller coaster ride, and you can get quite committed to the process. So thanks for listening. That's sort of the wonderful experience I've been fortunate enough to have, and I'd be happy to answer questions when the time comes for that. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Such an inspiring story, and I think especially for people who are kind of, just starting out having those conversations with friends and family and neighbors. If neighbors weren't on your list, you might want to add them, because you never know, as Mike said, where your donor is going to come from. And I think Mike's story really, really does a great job at illustrating that a lot of times, people are just not knowledgeable about this, and you can't assume that people understand how comprehensive the tests are to become a donor, how they have the separate team that is looking out for their health, and so really leaving it to the doctors to take them through that process, and if appropriate, to allow them to donate at the end of it. And again, it's such an important message for both recipients and for potential donors to hear what Mike had to say. So I will be putting Mike's email in the chat, and please feel free to reach out to him if you want to know more. And if a little education event wasn't on your list and you're looking for a living donor, might be something you might want to consider. Because I think Mike had said a little earlier that the purpose of the event was not necessarily to come out of that event with a donor, but to share the information and raise people's knowledge. And with that, hoping that someone obviously may want to learn more. But even if you're just sharing the information and getting the word out, that is extremely valuable. Great way to start. So I am going to now stop our recording, so people can feel free to go on camera